Hey guys, welcome to my channel, and today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. According to psychologists, most often young adults commit violent crimes for three reasons: the desire to maintain control and dominance in relationships, substance abuse that impairs their judgment, and most importantly, a sense of intellectual superiority that makes them believe they can outsmart the system. Even for the most serious crimes, gifted students often receive lenient treatment because their academic achievements are taken into account. In our story today, a college student named Victoria Hayes became the perpetrator of a calculated tragedy that ended two promising lives at once. However, the girl herself did not feel genuine remorse for her crime, and at the trial stated that her intelligence meant she deserved special consideration, while claiming she could manipulate any situation to her advantage. Victoria repeatedly changed her testimony, using her academic record to justify her actions, and apparently until the last moment was confident that her status as valedictorian would save her. But the verdict of the judge literally demolished the young woman's delusions and her prestigious family, who desperately defended their golden child. So let's get to the bottom of this. Who is Victoria Hayes? Victoria Hayes was born in September 2003 in the prestigious suburb of Greenwich, Connecticut, and was the eldest child in the family. Her parents, attorney David Hayes and Dr. Margaret Sullivan, were both high-achieving professionals who expected nothing short of excellence from their children. They enrolled Victoria in gifted programs from kindergarten, provided private tutoring in multiple subjects, and filled her schedule with activities designed to build an impressive college application. The eldest daughter was indeed the family's pride and joy. She was forgiven many demanding behaviors from childhood, and even serious character flaws often went unaddressed because her academic performance was flawless. Victoria grew up believing she was inherently superior, destined for greatness, and fundamentally different from ordinary people. She was used to adults praising her intellect and was confident that normal rules didn't apply to someone of her caliber. Classmates and teachers of the girl noted that in childhood she was quite articulate and impressive, but with age her sense of entitlement and superiority began to intensify. The girl displayed concerning behaviors. If something threatened her status, she easily manipulated situations, behaved dismissively toward those she considered inferior, and could become vindictive when challenged. Victoria did not consider anyone's opinion equal to her own. Her judgment should always prevail, and she put her own ambitions above all else. In adolescence, the character of the girl became simply intolerable, but her parents did not see anything terrible in this, believing that their daughter's demanding nature was simply the mark of a future leader who refused to settle for mediocrity. However, perfectionism was far from the worst of all the troubles. In high school, Victoria became addicted to prescription stimulants as well as anxiety medications to maintain her performance levels. But she managed this carefully, maintaining her pristine image while privately struggling with dependency. Often the girl's actions were calculated and carried a direct threat not only to her own future but also to the people around her. Her parents still did not notice, or simply did not want to notice, the obvious warning signs. Like many of her peers, Victoria was obsessed with social media and carefully curated her online presence. She constantly posted achievements and accomplishments on her accounts, always accompanied by captions that subtly emphasized her superiority over others. Victoria's friends were carefully selected based on what they could offer her: study partners, connections, or social status. Together they formed an exclusive circle that looked down on other students, sometimes engaged in academic sabotage, and several times came to the attention of school administrators. However, the young people were treated only with warnings and academic probation, which strengthened their belief in their own immunity from real consequences. A young man named Marcus Rivera was also a native of Greenwich. He was born in December 2001 and was the third of 5 children to his parents Carlos and Maria Rivera. The boy was raised with 2 older sisters and 2 younger siblings with whom he maintained close relationships throughout his life. Marcus studied exceptionally well in school, from childhood years actively engaged in community service, and tried to lead a balanced lifestyle. Despite the fact that he grew up in a large working-class family, neither he nor any of his siblings lacked parental love, attention, and support. Carlos and Maria were moderately strict with their children but at the same time encouraged their individual growth and achievements. Marcus always had numerous friends. He was naturally charismatic and became the heart of any group. The young man had striking features and an athletic build, was intelligent and engaging, so he also attracted attention from many admirers. However, he preferred meaningful relationships over casual encounters, emphasizing connections built on mutual respect and shared values. After graduating from high school, Rivera earned a full scholarship to an elite university, choosing pre-law with dreams of becoming a civil rights attorney. He planned to dedicate his life to helping underserved communities and fighting for social justice. In addition to his academic pursuits, the talented and driven Marcus worked part-time at a legal aid clinic and volunteered with immigrant families in his spare time. By the age of 21, the young man had already established himself as a rising star. He maintained perfect grades while working and volunteering, had been accepted into a prestigious summer internship program, and was being recruited by top law schools across the country. At the same time, he remained humble and grounded, always making time to help classmates who were struggling with coursework. Marcus and Victoria met for the first time during their junior year when they were both enrolled in an advanced constitutional law seminar. It was a highly competitive class with only 12 spots available, and this elite academic environment became the setting for their initial encounter, and this meeting became fatal for both of them. The young people were complete opposites of each other, and opposites are known to attract. The handsome, principled young man with his quiet confidence and natural leadership abilities immediately captured Victoria's attention. He was radically different from the guys she usually associated with while they competed for grades and status. Marcus seemed genuinely motivated by helping others and making a difference in the world. Victoria herself had a striking appearance and polished presentation, dressed impeccably and knew how to make the right impression on professors and peers alike. She turned on all her charm to draw the attention of the guy she wanted, and she managed to achieve her goal rather quickly. In the fall of 2022, the couple began dating and almost immediately each of them introduced their partner to their parents. But if Victoria's parents were pleased with her choice and considered Marcus an impressive addition to their daughter's resume, the parents of the guy had mixed feelings about his girlfriend. On one hand, the girl appeared accomplished, intelligent, and came from a prestigious family, but on the other hand, something about her intensity and need for control immediately concerned Carlos and Maria Rivera. Friends and family members of Hayes were convinced that Victoria for the first time in her life had met someone who could match her intellectually, and sincerely hoped that the relationship with Marcus would positively affect her character and help her develop genuine empathy. Then no one could have guessed what tragedy would end this promising academic romance. Soon Marcus began to notice disturbing patterns in his girlfriend's behavior, her controlling demands and desire to make everyone around her conform to her expectations. At first he did not focus too much attention on it, attributing her intensity to academic pressure and the stress of maintaining her perfect record. The young people made plans for their future together, and even discussed marriage after graduation, with dreams of attending the same law school. They also planned to work together on social justice causes, ideally starting a legal practice that would serve underprivileged communities. There Marcus would have the opportunity to build a meaningful career helping others while Victoria could gain the recognition and status she craved. But as time went on, Victoria's behavior became more and more alarming and sometimes even frightened Marcus. She demanded complete control over his schedule, insisted that he drop activities and friendships that didn't serve her interests, and if he disagreed with her decisions, she would create elaborate emotional scenes, throw tantrums, and behave like a manipulative child. At first Marcus tried to reason with her, but soon realized that this was Victoria's true nature. In public she maintained her perfect facade, but when alone with her boyfriend, she unleashed the full force of her need for dominance and control. Victoria's behavior became increasingly possessive and threatening, and at some point the young man decided that he had enough. He suggested that they take a break from the relationship so she could work on her controlling tendencies. But upon hearing this, Victoria had a complete breakdown in front of their mutual friends. She screamed, threatened Marcus that she would destroy his reputation and future career prospects if he left her, threatened to sabotage his law school applications and ruin his internship opportunities. But by doing so, she only made him feel more confident that ending this toxic relationship was the right decision. Victoria had no intention of letting her boyfriend escape, and at first she acted as if the breakup conversation had never happened. She continued to appear at his study sessions, inserted herself into his social plans, and maintained on social media that they were still happily together, posting old photos with captions about their perfect relationship. When Marcus firmly told her that everything was over between them, she literally lost all restraint. Victoria began monitoring his movements around campus, showed up at his part-time job and volunteer commitments to create scenes, called him from different numbers, sent lengthy emails alternating between love declarations and threats, and used social media to spread rumors about his character and academic integrity. Marcus was bewildered. He simply did not know how to handle such behavior because he had never encountered anything like Victoria's obsessive need for control. He tried talking to her rationally, attempted to ignore her harassment, and eventually began documenting her threatening behavior in case he needed to involve campus security. It reached the point where Victoria, seeing Marcus anywhere on campus or around town, would publicly confront him with accusations and threats in front of other students and faculty. She turned his academic life into a nightmare, but he still hoped that with time she would move on and focus her energy on someone else. One day, in front of multiple witnesses, Victoria declared that she would rather see Marcus dead than successful without her. She stated that if he wouldn't return to her and acknowledge her superiority, no one would benefit from his potential, and she would personally ensure it. The young man did not take these words as a serious threat, although those around him realized that Victoria was not making empty promises. Among the most frequent threats from the honor student were promises to sabotage his car, cause an accident during one of his late-night study sessions, or arrange for him to have a fatal encounter while walking alone after his evening volunteer work. Each scenario sounded calculated and detailed, as if she had been planning various options for months and was simply waiting for the right moment to act. When Victoria realized that threats and harassment would not bring Marcus back but only pushed him further away, she decided to completely change her approach. Victoria became sweet and reasonable again, stopped her obvious stalking behavior, and instead tried her best to appear as though she had learned from her mistakes and wanted to rebuild their relationship on healthier terms. She talked about her plans for law school, asked for his advice on internship applications, and claimed that she had been seeing a therapist to work on her controlling tendencies. She even appeared to show genuine interest in his volunteer work and social justice causes. Such changes pleasantly surprised Marcus. He still cared about Victoria despite everything and decided that perhaps she really was capable of growth and change. Therefore, they began to spend time together again, initially just as friends, helping each other with coursework and law school preparations. Gradually, the former couple became close again. Marcus began to believe that Victoria had genuinely matured, become more empathetic and less self-centered, and he found himself falling for her once more. He did not notice how completely he had been drawn back into her web, and all the former warning signs seemed to fade into distant memory. However, this time Victoria was much more careful about concealing her true intentions. Their renewed relationship appeared healthier to outsiders, but she was simply better at hiding her manipulative behavior. When Marcus's roommate and close friend James learned about the reconciliation, he expressed serious concerns and warned that nothing good would come from getting involved with Victoria again. But the young man, believing in second chances and redemption, did not heed these warnings. While Marcus naively celebrated their reunion and the positive changes he believed Victoria had made, she was secretly developing a terrifying plan for ultimate revenge against the young man who had dared to reject her. She had become fascinated with the idea of a tragic accident that would eliminate Marcus while making her appear to be an innocent victim. In her free time, she spent hours researching different scenarios and locations around campus where such an accident might occur. She studied the timing of security patrols, identified areas with minimal surveillance coverage, and carefully observed Marcus's routines to find the perfect opportunity. One evening while driving around the area near the university, Victoria discovered a remote section of road that wound through a wooded area with sharp curves and steep drop-offs. Her calculating mind immediately began working out how she could use this dangerous stretch of road to implement her plan. She decided that if she could get Marcus into a car on that road at night, she could stage a crash that would appear to be a tragic accident. It should be noted that initially Victoria had no intention of dying in the accident herself. Her plan was to survive and play the role of the grieving girlfriend who had lost her beloved in a terrible mishap. She even practiced her testimony for the inevitable investigation, crafting a story about how they had been driving to a romantic getaway when she lost control of the vehicle due to weather conditions or mechanical failure. At the end of October 2023, just a few weeks before law school application deadlines, Victoria suggested to Marcus that they take a weekend trip to a cabin in the mountains to work on their applications together without distractions. It would be a good opportunity to focus on their futures and to cement their renewed commitment to each other. The young man readily agreed, still trusting in Victoria's reformed character and looking forward to spending quality time together away from campus pressures. He had no reason to suspect that Victoria had carefully planned this trip as the perfect opportunity to implement her deadly scheme. The couple planned to leave Friday evening, October 27th, after their final classes of the week. Victoria had rented a cabin about 2 hours away through a website, providing them with a legitimate destination and cover story for their trip. They appeared excited about the getaway and told friends they were looking forward to a romantic weekend in the mountains. All day Friday, Victoria maintained her pleasant facade, attending classes and making normal conversation with friends and professors. But secretly, she had prepared everything for that evening. She had researched the exact route they would take, identified the specific curve where she planned to lose control, and had even arranged for her phone to have poor reception in that area to delay emergency response. That evening, Marcus packed his laptop and law school materials, genuinely excited about their productive weekend ahead. Victoria packed carefully as well, but her preparations were far more sinister. She had obtained prescription painkillers to take before the crash to help her survive the impact, and she had loosened Marcus's seatbelt without his knowledge. As they loaded the car and said goodbye to friends in their residence hall, everyone who saw them commented on what a happy, devoted couple they appeared to be. No one suspected that Victoria was about to attempt murder. Victoria drove the first part of the journey normally, following GPS directions and chatting casually with Marcus about their law school plans and career goals. She stopped at a gas station about an hour into the trip, using the break to secretly take the painkillers she had brought and to make final mental preparations for what she was about to do. When they resumed driving, Victoria took a detour from the planned route, claiming there was construction ahead that she wanted to avoid. Marcus, absorbed in reviewing application materials, didn't pay much attention to the change in direction. He dozed off as they drove through increasingly remote and winding mountain roads. It was nearly midnight when Victoria reached the specific curve she had scouted weeks earlier. The road was completely empty, with no street lights and dense forest on both sides. This was her moment. With Marcus asleep beside her, she suddenly accelerated to maximum speed and deliberately steered the car off the road toward a cluster of large trees. The impact was devastating. Marcus, unrestrained due to Victoria's sabotage of his seatbelt, was thrown forward and died instantly from massive trauma. Victoria, properly secured and cushioned by her pharmaceutical preparation, survived with serious but survivable injuries: broken ribs, a concussion, and lacerations from shattered glass. The accident occurred on such a remote stretch of road that it wasn't discovered until nearly dawn. A park ranger on early morning patrol noticed the tire marks and broken guardrail, and called for emergency response when he found the wreckage in the ravine below. Paramedics arrived to find Marcus dead at the scene and Victoria unconscious but alive. She was immediately transported to the regional trauma center, where doctors worked to stabilize her condition. Blood tests revealed the presence of prescription medications, but in the chaos of emergency treatment, this initially was attributed to pain management during transport. Victoria remained unconscious for nearly 48 hours, during which time police began their preliminary investigation. The accident initially appeared to be a tragic case of a young driver losing control on a dangerous mountain road, possibly due to fatigue or weather conditions. When Victoria finally regained consciousness, she found herself in intensive care with serious injuries, but alive exactly as she had planned. However, her first reaction upon learning of Marcus's death was not the grief-stricken response that medical staff expected. Instead, she appeared oddly detached and began immediately asking about what the police had been told about the accident. During her initial interview with investigators, Victoria claimed to have no memory of the final moments before the crash. She stated that she remembered driving normally, then waking up in the hospital. She suggested that she might have fallen asleep at the wheel or been blinded by oncoming headlights, causing her to lose control of the vehicle. However, the accident reconstruction team found several troubling inconsistencies with Victoria's story. The tire marks and impact patterns suggested intentional acceleration rather than loss of control, and there were no skid marks indicating any attempt to brake or correct course. Most damning, traffic cameras from earlier in the evening showed Victoria taking an unexplained detour from their planned route. When confronted with this evidence, Victoria changed her story, now claiming that she had intentionally taken the scenic route to surprise Marcus with beautiful mountain views, but that she was unfamiliar with the dangerous curves and simply misjudged the turn in the darkness. The breakthrough in the case came when investigators discovered Victoria's internet search history from the weeks leading up to the accident. Her computer revealed extensive research into fatal car accidents, survival rates for different types of crashes, and detailed study of the specific road where the accident occurred. She had even researched the timing of emergency response in that remote area. Additionally, several of Victoria's university friends came forward to report the threats she had made against Marcus during their breakup period. Her former roommate revealed Victoria's obsessive behavior and her stated belief that she would rather see Marcus dead than successful without her. Most importantly, Marcus's roommate James provided investigators with recordings he had made of threatening voicemails Victoria had left, including one where she detailed various ways she could hurt Marcus and make it appear accidental. When presented with this overwhelming evidence, Victoria finally abandoned her claims of memory loss and accident. Instead, she attempted a new strategy claiming that she had indeed planned to kill both herself and Marcus in a murder-suicide, but that her survival instinct had kicked in at the last moment, causing her to protect herself while still going through with killing him. This version of events was immediately contradicted by the physical evidence showing her careful preparation to survive the crash, including the strategically taken medications and her properly fastened seatbelt versus Marcus's sabotaged restraint system. During the months between her arrest and trial, Victoria showed remarkably little remorse for her actions. While awaiting trial on bail provided by her wealthy family, she continued her law school applications and even used Marcus's death to write compelling personal statements about overcoming tragedy and dedicating her legal career to his memory. She maintained an active social media presence, posting carefully crafted messages about grief and healing that were designed to generate sympathy and support. Victoria portrayed herself as the surviving victim of a tragic accident, and many people who didn't know the full circumstances of the case rallied around her. In interviews with court-appointed psychologists, Victoria consistently demonstrated a complete lack of empathy for Marcus or his family. She viewed his death primarily in terms of how it affected her own life and prospects, and showed more concern about the impact of the criminal charges on her law school applications than about the life she had taken. Victoria's trial began in September 2024 and lasted 6 weeks. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence of premeditation, including her internet searches, witness testimony about her threats, and expert analysis of the accident scene that proved the crash was intentional. Victoria's defense team attempted to portray her as a brilliant young woman who had suffered a psychological break due to academic pressure and the stress of her relationship with Marcus. They argued that while she may have planned to harm herself, the death of Marcus was an unintended consequence of her mental health crisis. However, the physical evidence told a different story. The careful preparation for her own survival, combined with the sabotage of Marcus's safety restraints, painted a clear picture of calculated murder rather than a crime of passion or mental breakdown. Throughout the trial, Victoria maintained her composure and continued to present herself as intellectually superior to everyone in the courtroom. She frequently attempted to coach her own lawyers and made condescending remarks about the prosecution's case, apparently believing that her intelligence would ultimately save her from serious consequences. On November 15, 2024, Victoria Hayes was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At the time of sentencing, she was 21 years old, just months away from what should have been her graduation from university and the beginning of her legal career. The judge noted in his sentencing remarks that he had rarely encountered a defendant who showed such complete absence of remorse or empathy. Victoria's belief in her own superiority and her treatment of other people as objects to be manipulated for her benefit made her, in his opinion, an ongoing danger to society. Victoria's parents, who had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on her defense and maintained her innocence throughout the trial, were devastated by the verdict. They continued to insist that their daughter was the victim of a rush to judgment and that the real Victoria was the accomplished, brilliant young woman they had raised. The families of Marcus Rivera gathered outside the courthouse to remember a young man whose life had been cut short by someone's selfish obsession. Marcus's father Carlos spoke about his son's dreams of fighting for justice and helping others, dreams that were destroyed by someone who claimed to love him. Victoria herself showed little reaction to the life sentence, apparently still believing that her appeals would eventually succeed. In her final statement to the court, she maintained that she was intellectually superior to everyone involved in her prosecution and that history would vindicate her actions. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to the channel and don't forget to click on the bell not to miss news stories from around the world. See you soon, take care.